Hi, everyone. If you're just joining in, my name's Richie. I'm one of the founders at PriceLabs. I also have Becca here with me, who leads the solutions team in US. Every month, we bring you the product updates webinar. If you've not seen a product updates webinar from us before, you can go to our YouTube channel. If you search PriceLabs in YouTube, you'd find our YouTube channel, and you can find some of the old product update webinars that we have done. Also on our marketing page, there's a product updates link, which I'll send in chat in a little bit, but that's where we update all our old product update webinars. Today, we have a few different updates for you and also want to get your input on a design that we are launching. So if you're going to please stick around till then. Do want your input on some of the new designs that we are launching. And as always, this webinar will be recorded. It will be sent to you via email and also will be available on our YouTube channel. And we're going to wait another minute or two before we get started. One final note that I'm being told is this webinar is in English, but we also do webinars in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. Again, we'll send you a link, and you can find the link to access the webinar timings for those languages, right? Cool. If you have any questions as we go through the webinar, use the Q&A button at the bottom to ask. That helps us keep these streamlined. We'll just wait for another minute or two to let people funnel in, and we'll go from there. I'm going to launch a poll just to understand who's on the webinar. So if you see that, please do reply. And then, Becca, to your question, will we give access to everyone?
No, can you give me access so I can send links and stuff?
I am not sure how to do that. Let me see.
Like
I just made you a co-host. Maybe that does it. See.
Yes, perfect. Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. Alrighty. Fantastic. We're going to wait another minute here before we dive in. And in the meantime, let me just quickly prepare my screens here. Okay, so we do have quite a variety of folks who have joined in and different backgrounds, so that's super helpful to know. Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much for that background, folks. Really, really helpful. And yeah, use the Q&A to ask any questions. Also, if you have product enhancements ideas, thank you, Joe. Feel free to ask them as Q&A. We won't necessarily be able to answer those questions, but at least we can at least see them and then record them for our product team. Cool. Let me share my screen. Becca, is my screen visible?
Yep, looking good.
All righty. Cool. Once again, thank you so much for hopping on, everyone. This is PriceLabs monthly product updates. Becca has sent a link in the chat if you wanted to find our old product updates, right? We do product updates in English, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese. And again, you can, on that link, you can find those, you can find the timings for those other webinars, right? Becca, if you can find the product updates webinar link, it's on our website under resources, and there's a product updates link.
That right there.
Cool, thank you. As always, this webinar is recorded and it will be shared with you. It takes us about 24 to 48 hours to clean out all our Rs and ums and then share it back with you and also put it on YouTube. And then finally, towards the end of this webinar, we do want to share and go through a new update that we're making to the product. So if you can stick around and give us some feedback on that, that would be super helpful as well. Alrighty. With that, let me walk into this month's updates. Right. There are two big updates that I would say. One is around things that you can do on the things that you can visualize on the calendar better, and also on the neighborhood data, so that you can make better decisions, you can make faster decisions about what's happening on your property, and it's just more visible. This was asked by multiple users multiple times, and so I'm hoping, or we're hoping that this would you'd find these updates valuable. Diving straight in, one of the first things that we have done is, and if you've explored this, leave us a note on. I don't know if you can reply on chats. So I'm not going to ask this. If you've explored this, fantastic. If you have not explored it, feel free to follow along with me. One of the first things that we have done, I'm going to skip out, is we have upgraded the calendar, both on multi-calendar and on the individual listing calendar. We're going to spend some time on the individual listing calendar, and then I'd get to the multi-calendar. On the individual listing calendar, we've added a few more elements so that you can understand the unavailable or book dates a little bit better. In the past, we only showed you the demand colors, which is at the bottom of the screen. You see all of these light green, light blue, dark blue, unavailable, and min stay. Those were the ones that we showed you, and also overrides if you enabled them, right? But now what we've also added is an ability for you to quickly see if that date has a check-in, if that date is booked. If it's not booked, then it will just show as this dot will not show. And if it is unbookable because of some strategy that we have put in place. And then I'm also going to I'm going to hop into product and show you this, but we've also enabled you can, if this is too overwhelming for you, you can disable this, or you can enable certain aspects of it, etc. By adding some clicks. Like I said, grid colors, these were already available. They show you local demand. And then we've added certain icons that help you understand booking data and why a certain date is unavailable or a certain color, right? Let me hop into my account and quickly show you this. If you see my screen, my product screen, right now, what I have here is I have my August sitting pretty with a bunch of dates that are available, but I also see, so for example, I see light green on some dates. So this date, I see a light green color. Then I see a light blue color right here, right? I don't see any dark blues just yet, but let me see. If I hop into December, I'd see this dark blue, for example, because I have that's a very, very high demand day. Coming back into August, I see I don't have any unavailable dates on this listing, but you'd see just an unavailable date. But right now, what you're seeing is this gray color along with a dot on the right, on the left top, right? What that dot indicates is that this date is actually booked and not just unavailable. If that dot also has a key symbol inside it, it's tiny, but visible, right? A white thing, a key symbol inside it. That means this is the day when there is a check-in. So similarly, if you had I have one single booking here of long booking starting on the 22nd and going on till 28th. If I had two bookings, I would see another, say, starting on the 25th, I'd see another key icon, right? Now I don't have any example here, but let me go back to my this guide again, and you'd see there is a red icon on this calendar this red icon is it's showing that date is unbookable. Now, why is that date unbookable? Because I have a stay restriction of 2 nights. I have a stay restriction of 2 nights, but I just have 1 date available. So we're trying to alert you through this to just so that you know, hey, this date is unbookable. You may very well want it to be unbookable, but just so you know, right? In a very similar way, again, on this date, you see I have 2 night stay restrictions, but it's just 23rd is booked, 25th is booked. So it's just 24th that is left, which makes that date unbookable, and which is why you'd see this red icon. That's the first update. What I'm also going to quickly show you is, so along with this calendar update, if I go into, by the way, I'm hoping you've explored this. If you put your mouse on any of the rates, you'd see a tooltip pop up, which talks about how this rate is calculated. So how this 274 is calculated. But right at the top of it, again, you'd see the same icons. That you'd see that dot, which means this date is actually booked. You'd see an ADR, which is what was the average daily rate that we received for this booking, right? And then booked, which is like the date when the booking was received. So like for August 23rd, I've received a booking on 19th July. Then after that, you see 23rd August, which is the date actually, and then the color, which is like we expect that date to be a normal demand, and then just the calculation of how did we come up with the price point for that day. That's the first set of updates. Any questions on that? If it's super clear, then great. But yeah, let us know. Cool.
We have one
I
question.
see. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, from Joe. The key symbol in the top left corner indicates check-in can also somehow a checkout date. Indicate somehow a checkout date.
I got it. Makes sense. We've not added it again. Our thinking is we're trying to find that balance of if it is too overwhelming, like more information versus overwhelming, but we'll send that feedback. Having said that, if you do find these additional icons, and like my calendar is not as busy, some of your calendars could be extremely busy, in which case this would look like a lot of dots and colors and etc. etc. If you did not want to see it, on the top right corner of my screen, you'd see these 3 dots. If you click that, you'd see various settings that you can enable and disable. So if I disable show booking info, and you see all of those things went away. Only the original ones, which is low demand, normal demand, good demand, high demand, unavailable, and stay restrictions stayed. You'd still see the unbookable info. If I wanted to not see that unbookable info, now my listing does not have anything unbookable. But if I remove that show unbookable, in which case you'd not see any unbookable info on the calendar as well. And then if you add overrides, for example, I have an override here in December. If I have an override at any level, if you've used PriceLabs at multiple levels, which is like listing level, group level, or account level, and you've enabled this highlight dates with overrides, at the right top corner, you'd see this triangle thingy, which tells you what the override is. And if you just wanted to click view overrides, that table will show you all the overrides that you have for that listing. Cool. So just quickly summarizing, we've changed things that we've added, like so that you can get better details and make better decisions. We've added a bunch of new variables to the calendar, so you can see check-in date, you can see the date that are booked, you can see unbookable dates. Overrides used to exist, but we've made it a little bit more clearer. If you don't want to see them, you can disable this from the advanced setting. If you hover on any date, you will see more details. So let me go back to a booking. If I hover on any date, I will see those specific details, which is like a key and a check-in right at the top, and the ADR and the date when that booking was made. Cool. On this, Becca, any questions?
If we have multi-unit users in the crowd, how is that going to affect this?
Very
Sorry,
question. Very
that's
good question. Becca, I
I'll throw
don't know
that
the answer to it, but
in
I'm
Slack and see if we can get an answer before the end
yeah,
of.
yeah. Or look at if you can in the meantime, look at any multi-user account and see if we can find the answer. In the meantime, let me also see, will there ever be an update that would show booked price for booked dates? Lauren, so I'm imagining that I will answer this live. I'm imagining like right here when I show you ADR and the booked date, that somewhat answers the question. But are you like, if you're looking for something else, please do describe it in a little bit detail. Or like if you're saying, hey, replace this 267, 271, 296 with just the booked price, let us know that as well. Do note that even though you may have received a booking, we still continue to calculate rates for those dates because you may receive a cancellation, in which case we want to have it priced out, right? Cool. Multi-unit question. Becca will just come back to, not related to current topic. I'm going to come back to your question later. Agree with Lauren. Okay. Can you change group overrides on a per listing basis? Okay, I'm going to come to this one as well. Really love the booking info. Normal versus unavailable colors appear similar. Have you considered anything other than colors, like pattern for unavailable? Cam, fair point. We had, but again, it made the calendar a little bit overwhelming, but a feedback that we can give to the team if someone particularly wants to use it a certain way, maybe there's an option for that, right? Some other gives multi-listings. How frequently are those prices updated? Okay, some few questions that are kind of unrelated. We'll answer that, Becca. I'm hoping you can, yeah. But there are answers on question on how frequently are the prices updated. Prices are updated every 24 hours, but we have something called as timed sync. If you look, if you search here, timed sync, you would see the timed sync functionality, and that can, one, allow you to dictate the time when you want to update prices, but also if you wanted to add multiple times or multiple syncs in a day, that will also allow you to answer that. Cool. I'll go back to this guide. In a very similar way, how we have added this to our regular single view calendar, we've also added these settings to multi-calendar. So if I go into my account again and I have multi-calendar enabled here, you'd again, if I go into August, you'd see these small icons right at the bottom of your price. So right next to your stay restrictions, you'd see these dots and icons, and those reflect what's happening with that, why that date is showing as unavailable or rather booked. What you can also do is, if you, again, very similarly click those three dots, anywhere you see these three dots in PriceLabs, that means there is more details or more ability to control certain things or views. You can disable, I don't want to see booking info, or I don't want to see any of this. I don't want to see overrides. I want you to show me child listings, etc. Right? You can enable or disable that via these three dots. But works very much similar to how it would work on a regular pricing calendar. Again, if I put my mouse on this, I'd see the same details, which is like I'd see the ADR, I'd see the date when it was booked, etc. Alrighty. Next, what we've also done, and Lauren, to your question, this might be helpful, is we've added on the neighborhood data the price where your listings were booked last year. Now, provided we're getting that data either from, we have to get that data from the connection, right? If your property management system has that data, or Airbnb account that you're connected to has that data, or VRBO account has that data, right? If we have that data, we can then show you your last year bookings, the ADR, right? And also if there are any future bookings, right? Now, where you'd go for this is if you're on your individual pricing calendar, and if I hop into neighborhood data, And I have a tab open here just for speed, right? So I have my neighborhood data right here, and you'd see this future prices graph. Let me just zoom in and just do next 30 days here, or maybe next, yeah, maybe next 60 days. So you'd see all of these prices, and then I can turn on your upcoming bookings. And here is where you'd see like that green line pop up on your calendar. So along with your regular view of neighborhood data, which is the black lines and the market lines, etc., you'd see these green lines pop up. So if I put my mouse on any date, I would see what is the current expected final price for that day, what is the upcoming ADR. Now ADR is, remember, it's if you have 7 days stay, it's calculating average of that, right? And then you can see where the market is as well. On my calendar, I don't have last year booking yet, right? But if I had a last year booking around the same time, or I have some dummy bookings here, you see these very low priced at 33 ADR in September, right? But normally you'd see a better number here, right? So you could also see last year booking data. So that helps you understand where you were priced last year versus this year, right? And if you have multiple bookings, it starts to look a little bit more like a continuous graph, right? Rather than this sporadic lines. Anywhere, again, if you see this dot in PriceLabs, do hover over it. It will show you more details about what exactly is that graph trying to represent. So those are the two changes that we have also made on the neighborhood data for you to understand where you're priced currently, at what price did you get bookings last year, and what price are you going to get booking? Did you get bookings this year? Hopefully this helps. Any questions on this, Becca?
Somebody asked how to access the multi-calendar. I think this is
Okay. Yeah,
the last thing that you're talking about, but there hasn't really been any questions on this. Did have one question about pacing. If you want to stay on this page, so like what is pacing? I think that might be in regards to the occupancy chart. Again, not really related to what you were talking about.
Got it.
Lots of sort of off-topic questions coming in.
Fair enough. Very cool. Maybe that means that I'm extremely clear in what I'm explaining. Cool. To the person who had asked, how do I access multi-calendar? So PriceLabs, like this top black bar, you'd see, and I'm talking generally in a web format. If you had an iPad, I think it becomes squished and you see like the three lines at the right side. But you'd see dynamic pricing, portfolio analytics, and market dashboards. Specifically within dynamic pricing dashboard is where you typically land up, has a list of your properties, and you can click review prices. If you click multi-calendar, that is where you'd end up into multi-calendar. Cool. Pacing. Let me wrap up the updates, and then we'll come back to pacing, because I want to leave time for wrapping up updates. And then if someone wants to stick around, then we do the pacing side of it.
Perfect.
Cool. Now, what we've also done is added a ability to control your far out premiums. Now, PriceLabs typically by default adds a 20% premium over the next 7 months outside of 30 days. And then from there, it adds a 20% premium flat. The reason why we add it is because while we understand what's happening in markets quite a bit, events sometimes get announced like in the last 3 months, last 6 months, maybe the demand is coming in fairly late, right? So we don't want to be one of the first ones to sell. So we do add a premium over your far out dates. Now, if you're the kind of person who does not want to see premiums far out, you're like, those prices, like current prices look good, but outside of 30 nights or outside of 3 months, the prices just look too crazy high, you may want to use this setting. The way you'd find this setting is if you are on your PriceLabs account, you'd click edit button. With edit button, you'd hop into advanced customizations, and in advanced customizations, you'd see a far out prices. You have to request this to be enabled from our PriceLabs support team. So drop us an email at support@pricelabs.co and our team will enable this. Once this is enabled, you'll see a few different options here. You'd see no far out prices, which is, hey, don't add any premiums. Let's just price the properties the way you would have priced them, like knowing everything that happened last year or anything that we're right now seeing in the market, right? Or you could say, hey, I want to add a flat premium, which is after, so you'd override anything that PriceLabs is doing. I want to add, say, after 30 days, 5% premium, right? I could do that. Or I could say, hey, I want to add a gradual PriceLabs premium, where I say outside of 30 days, apply a 2% premium over the next 300 days, right? So you'd see like the total premium after 330 days would be 2%, and on the 30th day it'll be 0, and every other day would be like 0 point something something something, right? If this was 100, I'm making this up, then on 330th day it would be 100%. On the 30th day it will be 0. 31st day it will be whatever like 100 divided by 300 is, right? Like 0.33%, right? So that'd be 0.33%, 0.66%, etc., etc. That kind of premium will get added. This allows you to better control how you want to handle the unknown events, right? So so option one, know that PriceLabs by default applies a 20% premium outside of 270 days, and then a gradual premium going from 0 to 20% between day 30 and day 270, right? You can change that by saying, if you're finding, hey, my far out prices are too high, or like I'm looking at my future months and I'm seeing my price is too high, you can enable a no far out price. Or you can say, hey, I want to add my own level of customization control here, or I want to do this as a percent gradual, right? So those two options. Quickly, I want to show you where you'd see this. For example, if I was on a calendar view and I am in month January, and if I put my mouse on any of the dates, if you see maybe 5th or 6th from the top, you see a price customization. It says a far out premium. There's a 15% premium that is getting added for this date because it's quite far out and we don't want to be one of the first ones to sell, right? But if you wanted to change it, you have the control. I also want to quickly show a bunch of all of this to you on the multi-calendar if you're a multi-calendar user. Firstly, we talked about how to control these and all of these, like disable or enable that booking info. If you wanted to see neighborhood data, if you click this 3 dots, you'd now start seeing all of this information that you saw on the individual pricing calendar. So if I click neighborhood data, my neighborhood data will pop up and it'll look very much similar to how it looked on the other screen. I'm not going to wait for it to load. You can also edit customizations again from this place. And if I go into, again, advanced customizations far out, I can control it very much the same way. And again, if I was maybe in, let's say, Feb, and give it a second to load. If I was in the month of Feb, if I put my mouse on any of these rates, you'd again see, for example, here you see that far out premium of 16%, which because we're adding a buffer because we don't want to be one of the first ones to sell. But remember, revenue management and pricing is all about the risk that you want to take. You might want to be on the conservative side and say, I don't want to add far out premium. I like to be booked far out in advance, in which case you may want to disable the far out premium itself. Cool. Becca, any questions?
Yeah, is the far out premium currently a grant feature access?
It is a grant feature access. So you have to email support@pricelabs.co. Sorry, it's hidden right here in the in the bottom right corner of my screen. Email us at support@pricelabs.co. And ask them to enable far out feature for you. Once they enable that, you will see that in your account.
Perfect. And then we do have another question. So if you change the far out premium, the flat percentage, will you still get the default 20% premium for any days over 30? I think that they're asking if the change is going to apply on top of our current default, or if we're actually
It replaces
replacing it.
It replaces the current default, right? So like you can control the setting. It will replace our current default, which is what we apply, and we keep adding intelligence to it, right? But if you apply your own, it will replace ours. If you're Ray, I see your question. If it is not showing up on your end, that's because it's a grant feature. We have a menu of features that are grant feature. Just ask our support team to enable it for you, and you'll see it. Cool. Are there other functionalities to be requested manually to PriceLabs, for example, far out prices? There is like, it's like PriceLabs is a little bit of like secret menu.
Yeah, like
right?
Starbucks.
I don't know if there is a help article that we have, but if we don't have one, we'll make one available. And Becca, if you can ask this question in the support channel, if there is a help article that covers various grant feature access tools that we have at PriceLabs. But in general, my ask would be, if you have a need for certain things and you're not seeing it in PriceLabs, please do reach out to our support team. Chances are we either have that as a secret menu. The reason for secret menu is what I'm going to cover in a little bit about the design that we're doing, because what we're also finding is the more functionalities we add, sometimes it can get very overwhelming. And so we don't show everything upfront on the screen, right? Yeah. But if you ever have a question, do ask. And it is possible that we have the feature. If we don't have the feature, we can add it to our backlog. Cool. Katrina, we don't want to be the first booked. Can you elaborate on the strategy, what your target time frame is for bookings? Becca, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, 100%. So there's a couple of things that kind of go into that thought process, right? So we're really trying to optimize your pricing for the best possible booking. And if you're booked a year in advance, there's not necessarily a ton of market data. Some people do like to really plan far ahead and get those far out bookings. But say Taylor Swift is in the news a lot lately. That's the one that I like to use. Say Taylor Swift is going to extend her tour into next year, and she's going to do another round, and she's going to go to your city. If you've already booked for that weekend, you're kind of missing out, right? So there's events that maybe haven't been announced or haven't really started to see pickup. So maybe, every year there's something going on in your area, but we, aren't actually picking up the demand yet. The 20% that we sort of currently have set in place, it's sort of like a buffer to say, hey, if you're going to get a booking that's really far in advance, then we're at least going to get you a higher price than sort of what you normally would be listed at. And then also there's the, sort of secondary thing that if you're sort of waiting when there's sort of less supply in the market, then you're positioning yourself to potentially get a better rate for your booking as well.
Yeah,
there's probably more to it as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, nothing more to add there. But if you have questions, feel free to ask. It is essentially, think of it as revenue management. Essentially, is very similar to how you'd invest your money. Some people invest in stock markets, some people invest in mutual funds, some people invest in CDs, but some also invest in cryptos, right? Everyone has different risk profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to secure a booking, in which case securing a booking is more important, in which case you'd not necessarily have a far out premium. Others want to take the risk, add premiums, right? And take more of those expensive bookings in a later date, right? Again, we're playing with a little bit of like the magic ball here, right? Because like no one really knows, right? So we're forecasting what the demand for a certain date would be, and accordingly we are pricing, right? But on top of that, we add a little bit of premium to saying if the demand was more, we don't want to undersell, right? But if getting a booking far out is more important. For example, if you're used to, hey, I'm used to getting bookings 6 months out, 9 months out for the next year, right? You may not want to use the far out premium if you're in that kind of market. Cool. I think there are two similar questions. Sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Becca.
I was gonna say, Ray just asked, I've been using the far out minimum price for this. What's the difference? I think that's kind of an interesting thing to touch on.
Yeah. And I think Mario maybe has the same question. Do you want to take that, Becca? I can pop into the screen, but
yeah. So far out. So I'll discuss far out minimum pricing. So keep in mind your minimum price, it sits outside the algorithm, meaning that it doesn't actually affect our final recommended prices. You'd really only see your minimum price if we'd be recommending a price below that. So you'd have to set like a pretty aggressive far out minimum to really like be increasing your prices. So especially if you're in like a seasonal market, for example, you'd really have to have a really aggressive far out minimum price for it to actually be pushing your prices up really far out on your calendar. The adjustment that we're talking about under the advanced customizations, just the far out premium, that's actually making an adjustment on our sort of final recommendation. It's saying, hey, we would be normally pricing this at $100, but because it's so far in advance, we're pricing it at $120 instead of just changing that floor that we can't go below, which this is a fine way to do it. But again, sort of based on your risk profile there. Yeah.
And just quickly to put screen to what Becca just said, for example, I have a customization of minimum far out enabled. And just for gimmick, I've said fixed 500 outside of 30 days, even though my base is 390 and minimum is 200. If I turn this on, what you'd see is this acts as a threshold. It does not adjust your prices. So if I go into now August, you'd see all of these prices bottoming out at 500. If I go to September, you'd see the same. If I put my mouse on top of it, you'd see all of the price calculation. It starts from 390. Based on market factors, it gets to 284. Based on some customizations, it gets to 277. But then it sees, oh, there is a threshold of minimum price because of far out weekday fixed, which is 500. So my final price is going to be 500. Cool. Becca, anything else on this?
There was a question, what's the difference under stay restrictions, the far out booking feature? So what we've been talking about so far is related to pricing. So either changing your minimum price with that far out minimum. The feature update was for the far out premium, which is actually changing that recommended price. But if you go under stay restrictions, you do have an option to set up sort of different levels of your minimum stay, right? So if you think about it, like we've got your default minimum in here, that's going to be 2 nights, whether you're checking in on a weekday or a weekend. And then you have orphan gaps, last minute bookings, and far out bookings. Those are like exceptions to that rule. So in the same way that we can raise our prices if people are booking further in advance, we can also raise our minimum stay and actually require people to stay longer if they're booking really far out on our calendar.
Yeah. And what I do want to add, PriceLabs has intelligent stay restrictions, right? So if you see this button, and everyone should see this button, if you click on that, and most of you, I'm hoping, are short term, if not midterm, which is like generally taking bookings less than 14 days. If you click go on it, PriceLabs will look into your market and give you recommendations based on what we think is the revenue maximizing stay restriction for your market. And so you, for example, you'd see all of this, right? And all that you can do is just click apply and customize, and PriceLabs will automatically will bring this in. If you wanted to change that to saying, I actually don't want to take 1 night stays. In my market, remember, I had 2 nights, but what PriceLabs is saying is you should actually go for 3 nights, drop to 2 nights within the last 29 nights, and keep 4 nights outside of 90 nights, and also allow me to opening my orphan gaps. And that helps me quickly do this. Cool. Alrighty. Okay. Now, let me go back to this. I'm hoping this is clear. Just two quick announcements. We are also now in Italian. If you're on this webinar, I'm assuming all of you are English speaking, but if you wanted to change your language, if you just wanted to practice a new language, you can, of course, change your language from the top right menu here into other languages. And also one additional integration that we have launched, which is OTA Sync. Alrighty, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I know, guys, you have a bunch of questions around some of the other things. But if you have specific questions around these updates or any feedback, please do share. New far out premium around the booking data. I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, let me share my screen again. Around new far out premium, or around the booking data in future prices chart, or booking indicators that are both on multi-calendar and on individual pricing calendar. And then finally, if you find them overwhelming, you can turn them off. If you have any feedback around this, please do let me know. If I know you're also sharing newer feedback for us, that will help us. Make the product better for you, right? And finally, like I know there were a few questions around far out premiums. If you don't see it in your account, please just reach out to support@pricelabs.co, and we will enable it for you. Always know that in webinars, sometimes the response time can be higher because there are a lot of people reaching out to our support team at the same time.
So the first thing that I want to chat about, because our team already got back to us on the question regarding multi-units.
Yeah.
Do you have a multi-unit in your account?
I don't. Do you?
Hold on, let me see.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'm just okay.
Yeah, I do. I can share the screen.
Go for it.
So I don't have like everything that you might want to see. Can you see my screen, Richie?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, and this is Roxy. She's gonna make a quick appearance. Sorry. So beautiful. So we won't show check-ins for multi-units just because say you have, 6 units in a building and it's all considered a multi-unit. The check-ins could look pretty sporadic and a little bit almost more confusing than helpful. So we're actually already showing multi-unit occupancy. We've been showing this for, I don't know, quite some time now. It's going to, instead of just like a solid circle, which or for single units, that's basically showing that it's booked. You're going to see like this little pie chart here indicating how many of the units in this multi-unit are booked. So you should have everything. You should still have, if it's unbookable, the min stay overrides, the multi-unit occupancy. Really the only thing that's missing is that check-in, and we decided to sort of cut that because it looked like it was more confusing. Hopefully that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Cool. And then a couple of people wanted us to go into pacing, so I can quickly cover that. Yeah. So I think I'm not exactly sure when that pacing question was brought up, so I'm not sure what screen we were on. But the sort of easiest way to show you is in this neighborhood data. So in our other webinars that we do, we talk about different KPIs or key performance indicators, like your average daily rate, your occupancy, all of that good stuff. You can kind of think of pacing as sort of like a measurement or like a context that's sort of giving more color to these other data points that you're looking at. So for example, if we're looking at this occupancy chart, I can add last year data. Now mine looks kind of funny because I've got this multi-unit here. And I'm going to hide market occupancy last year final. So we're left with 2 lines, right? We've got this red line that is showing the current market occupancy. and then the gray solid line showing the market occupancy last year today. So essentially, this is showing you sort of how this year is comparing or pacing against same time last year, so July 19th, 2022. On certain weekends, you can see in this market that, so like October 7th, for example, we're pacing ahead. The market is more booked already than it was this time last year. Whereas at other weekends, so September 15th, for example, the market is pacing behind, or it's less booked than last year. So it's generally sort of a way to understand other data. We have a lot of, we've got a couple of pacing reports that are really interesting. This is going to be your own data under portfolio analytics. And if you haven't checked that out, we do have a really great webinar at the beginning of each month that goes into all of that information. Anything to add? Or any other questions that you're seeing?
I was typing something.
Sorry.
There was a
so
question
much.
on pacing with market this year. Yeah, Terry, the graph that you see is pacing with market this year, right? Like, maybe did you also go into pickup, Becca? Sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you just talk about pickup as well? Maybe.
Yeah. So pickup. I don't think that we show it in neighborhood data. If we
No. There's add pickup, right where you add last year data.
I'm only halfway through my coffee, Richie.
No worries.
Yeah. So if we add pickup here, I'll hide some of these other lines, the market occupancy, all of that. So now we're left with two lines. So pickup is essentially the change in occupancy over the past 7 days. So how many bookings or what percentage of occupancy has been made in the past week. And we're also showing the pacing here. So if you look at the 7-day market pickup here, for example, we saw that July 28th in the past 7 days has booked about 31% of the total occupancy. Whereas last year, if we look at that same date, we were only at 16.7% pickup. So that date is picking up much faster than it was last year. So you might want to pay attention to those dates in particular.
Very cool. Becca, can you quickly show how to get to minimum state settings?
Yeah, of course. So if you're going to do it at the listing level, you're going to click edit. And then it's actually the first setting that's going to pop up on this customizations menu. By default, it's going to be turned off. This is one of those things that you actually have to enable in PriceLabs in order for us to actually be controlling it on your connected account. So you'll want to turn this on. You can either set up a custom profile, essentially, just kind of choosing your own values here, or you can use those settings that we're suggesting based on the market data in your area by clicking that button.
Yeah. And if you click that learn more right at the end of that text, it takes you into a very, very detailed article that talks about everything, stay restrictions. It's like, I think it's one of our longest articles possibly in customizations, but would highly recommend, if you're not setting up stay restrictions, please do consider it as a strong lever for your revenue management, right? Becca, one quick question here. Why not set up max price?
Good question. So a lot of our users don't use a maximum price. Again, it sort of sits outside the algorithm. It's the ceiling that you don't want us ever to price above. Many users sort of underestimate what they can get for certain dates. So I used to be a property manager, and I will say that for some of my listings, I probably would recommend using a maximum price. Think about your guests, think about their expectations. So if you happen to be in a really high demand area and there's a really high demand date, if you know that your listing should not rent for $1,000 a night and somebody's going to be angry when they check in, maybe consider putting a maximum there. If you don't feel comfortable renting it for, X amount, go ahead and put a maximum in. But a lot of the times you can use other sort of levers in our system to ensure that we're not getting to those really crazy high prices if you're sort of adverse to sort of, like in this case, like a $1,500 night. I did see a question about demand factor aggressiveness.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of answer that here. So that's actually one, if you don't like to see your prices go so high, or you don't like to see your prices fluctuate a lot, that's actually a setting that I sometimes will recommend. So say we're looking at this October date, currently recommending about $1,000. If I go into advanced customizations, the second one down is this demand factor aggressiveness. If I turn this on, it's going to be just automatically, it's on recommended. That's sort of what our default is. That's how the system normally runs. I can change this to either conservative or aggressive. Conservative is going to dampen sort of how we're fluctuating. So on those really high demand dates, we're not going to be pricing quite as high. On the low demand dates, we might not be pricing quite as low. And then the other option is aggressive, which is going to sort of do the opposite. So on this date, we were pricing around 1,000. That seems like a really big jump, but so we were pricing around 1,000 with that recommended factor. And now we're pricing around 643 with a conservative factor. So I sometimes would recommend changing that over putting in just like a cap at the maximum, but it's really dependent on your own goals.
Very cool. All righty. Okay, we're at the end of our webinar here. I know we have still a few open questions. Can you explain OTA and pacing? Pacing, Becca did explain. OTA is online travel agencies, is a very archaic name, but essentially Airbnb, etc., were or are still called Airbnb, VRBO, etc., are called OTAs, online travel agents. Can you change group overrides on a per listing basis? Can you see all unbooked dates on etc., etc.? Cool. If you final price is yes, what PriceLabs recommends, not necessarily recommends, right? It's based on what PriceLabs recommends plus your thresholds that you may have, right? If you have a min price threshold or a max price threshold, final price is what the final price is. Cool. Like always, the webinar will be available on YouTube, and we'll also be emailing this to you. Anything that you saw or any like on the new features that we've rolled out, or the screenshots that I showed you about the popular customizations tab. If you have questions, please email us at support@pricelabs.co. And again, thank you for joining in. We'll probably see you again in a month's time. Ideally, you receive invite for this webinar via an email that goes out every month on product updates, or you'd also see it via our in-app. You'd see notification which says this webinar is coming up. Cool. Thank you so much for joining. Take care and bye-bye.
Thanks so much, y'all.